Welcome. Thank you for joining us for today's exciting panel presentation on breaking barriers, women pioneering leadership in power and energy. In terms of the agenda, I'm going to do our welcome and our introductions and also introduce our moderator, who will then introduce our panelists. From there, the panel presentation will be just under an hour, and then we're going to have time for some Q&A. So throughout the presentation, put your questions into the Q&A box, and we will strive to get to as many questions as possible. If you do need any support, please send me an email. My email's there on the screen. And we will be sending out a survey after this event. So I would appreciate if you could respond, because your feedback is valuable and it helps to shape our programming and the different initiatives that we do. I just want to share a little bit about Women in Power. Women in Power empowers women in Alberta's power and energy industry to reach their full potential, both professionally and personally. We also welcome men in the industry to engage with and support our community. We strive to develop a supportive and influential and accessible community through events and programs and PD opportunities, both online, like we're doing here today, and in person. We strive to create an environment where women feel empowered and have access to information and resources and services they need to succeed in their careers. We like to collaborate with our sponsors and partners to support and establish goals and initiatives related to diversity and inclusion in the workplace. So we're so thrilled that you're part of Women in Power and here with us. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank our financial supporters, because without them, we wouldn't be able to do the work that we're doing here today. We're extremely grateful to our gigawatt, our megawatt, and kilowatt sponsors. Thank you. And a special thank you to our non-financial supporters as well. Thank you very much. Before we begin the official portion of today's event, I would now like to do our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we live, work, and gather on the traditional territories of the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples who have cared for these lands for generations. In what is now Alberta, we recognize Treaties 6, 7, and 8 in the historical Northwest Métis homeland. We honor the knowledge of the elders past and present and make this acknowledgement in the spirit of reconciliation and gratitude. I would now like to introduce our moderator and vice chair of Women in Power, George Newell, who I have the pleasure of working with every day. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce George. She has over 25 years of experience in the energy and electricity sectors in North America. She has extensive knowledge in transmission, generation, distribution, compliance, and regulatory environments. She is currently the Associate Director at Guidehouse. As the Vice Chair of Women in Power and founding member, George is committed to advocating for the development and advancement of women in the power industry. In addition, she contributes her expertise and experience to make a positive impact on the future of women in utilities. George has been recognized by the industry as an influential leader and has made significant contributions through her involvement in various industry groups, including the Idaho National Laboratory. In her free time, she mentors young professionals and coaches aspiring female athletes. I will now hand it over to George to introduce our panelists. Thank you.
Thanks, Leah. I really appreciate that. I am so excited to be here today. I've got 3 fantastic ladies that I'm going to have a fireside chat with. So I hope everyone's just as pumped as I am. So let's go. First off, we've got Marie Rajic. Marie is the Senior Vice President, Corporate Affairs at ENMAX. Her past experience includes EVP Corporate Affairs at ESG Financial, Senior Advisor in the Premier's Office in the Government of Alberta, and Senior VP at Hill and Knowlton Strategies, where she led the Prairie Region and the National Energy Practice. She has also served as Director of Sustainability and Strategy at TC Energy. She is a Calgary Top 40 Under 40 alumni, way to go, a recipient of the Queen's Jubilee Medal, and an active member of the International Women's Forum and Women's Economic Council of Alberta. She also currently serves on the board of Pure Life Carbon, an ag tech company, and was previously vice chair of MyTax. Welcome, Marie. Next up, We have Janis Rogers. Welcome, Janis. Janis is the Chief Financial Officer for Rising Edge Group. With close to 10 years of service with Rising Edge, Janis has held several roles from project controls to financial controller and now CFO. Her ability to balance personal growth with excellence has earned her numerous awards, including CIAU Academic All Canadian status and recognition for her leadership in community outreach programs. She continues to lead effective change through her executive position, which included partnering with Women+Power, and we are grateful for that, Janis, as one of several calls to action that Rising Edge has taken to support meaningful change within the energy sector. Lastly, we have Heather Speers, who I am so fortunate to have worked with at FortisAlberta. As Vice President, Human Resources, Heather is responsible for FortisAlberta's people and culture strategy. She is committed to fostering an inclusive workplace where all employees can achieve their professional goals. With nearly 20 years at FortisAlberta, Heather has held progressively senior roles in billing, customer care, and human resources, gaining a deep understanding of the company's business, employees, and customers. She draws on an educational background in social work to lead with empathy and cultivate a supportive environment for FortisAlberta's 1,300 employees. Anyway, welcome, ladies. Once again, I'm super excited to be here, and I look forward to our discussion today. So first off, let's start it off. We're going to have some fun with this. So maybe we'll start with Heather. What does it mean to you to be a woman leader in Alberta's energy sector? And you've been doing this for a long time. So, what are your tips and tricks? How does it feel? What can you share with all of our members today?
Well, I think I'm going to take a little bit of an HR lens on this discussion, but just to start out, I think it's safe to say we're living through a time of unprecedented change in the energy sector, right? The significant shifts we're seeing in technology and innovation that is then driving the need for evolving government policy and regulation. And so it's a really exciting time to be in this industry. It's not kind of the sleepy, stable industry it maybe used to be. So it's also exciting, though, to see women more than ever, I would say, thriving and leading and being at the forefront in this industry. There are more women in executive roles and on boards and at the helm in industry and government than ever before. So when I think about, what it means to be a women leader in this industry, I think there is a real responsibility to make sure we're opening doors and creating pathways for other women around us. And I'm proud to say, at FortisAlberta, I work for an organization where we're deeply committed to supporting the growth and advancement of women. So I'll provide just a few examples of some of the things we're doing. I have the pleasure of reporting to our female president and CEO, Janine Sullivan, who's a champion of advancing women in the workplace. And our board of directors as well, we now have 5 out of 10 board members, including our board chair, that are women. So there's a real focus in my organization on making sure that we're demonstrating a commitment to gender diversity at all leadership levels, which I think is really important part of the strategy when we're talking about how do we open doors in this space. And I think we're starting to see some of these initiatives actually make a difference. In the past 2 years, our senior management team has had an 11% increase in female leaders. And in the past 3 years, 36% of vacant management positions have also been filled by women. So what are some of the things that we focus on doing in this space to make sure we are opening these doors and advancing women in our organization? We have implemented some initiatives that I think any organization can adopt and find successful ways to create pathways. And some of those are, we have a women in leadership group that we bring together for connection and networking, business acumen, discussing how to navigate career growth in what has been a traditionally male-dominated industry. And that, I think, has really been a great support for the women in our organization and something that is translatable into any organization. And we also have a robust mentoring program for employees at all levels of the organization, which can also be a really powerful stepping stone for career development. And then, of course, similar things to what a lot of you would be doing is having a women's network employee resource group, which organizes learning events on women's health, provides opportunity for informal leadership opportunities in that they get to lead some of these groups and engagement, and really offers a platform, again, for women at all levels of the organization to grow and connect. And, you know, we do other things, I'm sure that a lot of you do as well. Obviously sponsoring this wonderful Women+Power organization and being involved with careers to encourage women to get into careers in trades and technologies. But really, it just comes down to finding ways to support women at all stages of their careers and in all stages of life, because what all of us know, at different times, we need different things. And we want to be there for that and really help women be able to step into being powerful leaders in this industry. But to do that, we have to be willing to think about how we support women at every stage of their career and every life stage. So that's a little bit about what we think about in this space.
Yeah, thanks, Heather. That's great. And, you know, I think this is a really important reminder to everybody. We can do anything we set our minds to. I tell my kids this every day. You know what? If you want to do that, you can. And that's the encouragement we need to give to some of our colleagues, our friends, to make sure that they are doing their, you know, their utmost best to be there and be on the top and be at the table. I think that's really critical for us to be successful. Marie, I'm going to turn it over to you. What are your thoughts? You know, what does it mean to you to be a woman leader in this industry?
Well, it's definitely evolving in in what's been a traditionally male-dominated industry. Like I remember, as like 12, 13 years ago, sitting in a meeting, the only woman around the table. And I remember, my colleague who was chairing the meeting, I don't know if he's trying to compliment me or make me feel comfortable, but he said in the middle of the meeting there, like, I'm really, he told me I was really good at my job because I think like a man. And and that was like 12 years ago. And it's rare for me to be at a loss for words, but I genuinely didn't know what to say to that. But I think it's important to remember that we are breaking barriers. Yes, we're working in an industry that's traditionally been dominated by men, but as leaders, it's now our responsibility to show that leadership, it's not defined by gender, but by capability and by vision, and most importantly by results. And I do want to emphasize how important representation and visibility are. I'd gotten so used to being the only woman in the room or one of few women that, when I came over to ENMAX, I was so happy and so proud to see that almost the entire executive leadership team here is made up of women. That matters. Like, representation matters, and seeing women in decision-making roles helps to normalize and inspire broader gender diversity. Being a woman in Alberta's energy sector, I think, also comes with a responsibility to mentor and to advocate for other women. And, we'll talk about, that, I'm sure, later on. But, like I remember when I was a young woman just starting out, and I've lived by this, a senior woman told me that as I'm climbing the corporate ladder, always reach down and pull another woman up. And I have lived by that advice. It really is our responsibility to uplift other women in our industry. So I'm going to, give all of you on this call, all the women, incredible women participating and listening to us talk, as you climb the corporate ladder, reach down and pull another woman up, and be the kind of leader that creates inclusive environments where diverse voices are heard and they're valued, and be the kind of leader that supports and advocates for other women.
Absolutely. I love that. That is so great. I always feel like everyone is good at something. You just have to find it and you bring them along and you make them successful. That is what good leadership is all about. Janis, over to you. Please share your thoughts on what you think and, your experiences.
Yeah, I want to echo on the inclusivity piece, because I think the thing that's really changing is the attitude around us and the how we're received in a room. It's not unusual to be I shouldn't say it's not unusual. It's becoming less unusual to be the woman in the room and have a group of men to be listening to you, and then but the attitude that I'm seeing come back is what I'm seeing changing, is the openness to hearing what you have to say and treating you as an equal and seeing you as the individual, looking beyond gender, ethnicity, orientation, religious beliefs, all of these pieces of cultural diversity that are now we're looking past those and looking toward people's achievements. And you talked about results, Marie. It's another really pivotal piece to, I think, where I've gotten in my career in terms of that's the piece I always come back to. Okay, what is the fact? What is the result? What is it, the data-driven decisions that I can rely on when I start to feel a little like I'm wavering and I'm not certain where I fit in the room? What is the driven result I'm going for? And so but I don't find that the space I'm in now, I don't find I have to go back to those fear comfort zones. The modern leader is looking for the result oriented, and they're seeing beyond all of these gender-based norms, because the norms are kind of falling apart, which is wonderful to see, because we should be seen as individuals, not as our race or our gender or our religious beliefs.
Yeah, absolutely, Janis. Thanks for that. I do agree. And you know what? We can continue to do this. We can continue to change the trajectory going forward. And I think we've already seen that in, all of us that have been in this industry for 20 plus years. There's been a lot of changes since I started. I'm not the one necessarily being asked to get coffee anymore. So I think that's showing progression. That's a very positive step forward. And it's really important, for us to continue to demonstrate all of these capabilities and qualities. And I think if we just switch gears a little bit, this brings up a great point about imposter syndrome, because I'm sure that all of us have felt that at some time, am I really supposed to be here? And so I think that probably some of the people listening as well can relate to this. So we'll just talk about, have you ever experienced imposter syndrome? And if so, how have you worked through that? How have you really, talked yourself out of it? I'm not an imposter. I am supposed to be here. And maybe Marie, will start with you.
Yeah, oh my God. I think it's something most women encounter. I absolutely experienced imposter syndrome, early in my career and even during certain pivotal transitions into new roles, with more visibility or complexity. I've had moments, where I've questioned whether I truly belonged at the table or, in the role, or whether I was smart enough, experienced enough, technical enough. And what sort of helped me through it is, Marie, stop. You need to separate, how you're feeling, your feelings from the actual facts. And then, thinking about all the experience that I've had and the results that I've delivered. And, it's normal to question yourself and to doubt yourself. And that's good. It's okay. Humility does not mean weakness. Doubt does not mean weakness. Confidence it isn't about never doubting yourself. It's about moving forward anyway. So I would say for women that don't feel like they belong, just take a breath and remember that you do belong. You did earn that seat at the table. And, our industry, it needs, our voices, our ideas and our leadership, and you're never going to feel 100% ready. So, and growth comes from stepping into the leadership space before you're completely comfortable. Sometimes you just have to jump.
Absolutely. And I think the one important thing, that I've learned, and hopefully everyone else is going to learn if they haven't already, it's okay to say, I don't know. if you're at the table and you don't know, it's okay. You know what? You take it back, I'll get back to you. And it's something that you can learn, you can grow from all those experiences. So, it's completely acceptable to do that.
No, George, I
maybe
think you actually gain people's respect when you do that. When you step forward and say, I'm okay admitting I don't know, but I'm going to take that away and learn, because it shows that openness to continue to learn. And it tries to, it's almost like the opposite of the imposter syndrome. I'm trying to show you exactly who I am and who I'm not, and not trying to fake you out, right? I'm not trying to be something other than what I am. So I think you earn people's respect when you say, you know what, I'm not sure, but I will find out.
Absolutely, Janis. And I know one of the many meetings I've been in, one of my executives had said to me, do not try to, lie your
Yes.
way through answering questions. That will not do anybody any good. So back to if you don't know, it's okay to say you don't know. Any other thoughts on imposter syndrome, Janis? What's your experience and how have you worked through it?
Well, I think I'm having a little imposter syndrome at the moment, to be honest. But no, I think what Marie spoke about getting out your comfort zone, like you step into, you feel that when you're feeling change. Change is part of growth, but change is uncomfortable, and you start to feel like you're not in familiar territory. Well, guess what? That's part of changing. You're never going to change if you don't step out of the comfortable territory. So, yeah, imposter syndrome is real, but it's not just in a leadership role. There's all kinds of places where we feel like we're not sure. It's just that in the leadership space that maybe you feel like you've got a little bit more on the line. This is my career, and can I really risk it? I would challenge to say, well, what if you don't? If you don't put yourself out there and get uncomfortable, then you'll never push those norms, and you have to just keep trying. So I think it's a lot about facing your fear is what I think of when I think of imposter syndrome.
Absolutely. And I like that, pushing your limits. So it's like reaching outside your comfort zone to see what else you can do, because you don't know what you're capable of until you do that. Heather.
Yeah, I think that's so important what you just said, Janis, about really it's about walking through your fears, right? And I would say absolutely this is something I've struggled with at many times in my career, like Maria is saying. And my organization is one that believes in broadening leaders by giving them opportunities to grow and test their leadership capabilities, moving them into spaces where they may not be the subject matter expert in every capacity, right? And so in the last 20 years, I've had many times where I've had to step into a role that was a significant learning curve for me. And I certainly felt intimidated by the challenge in front of me. And I had one of those moments, I'd say it was about 8 or 9 years ago, when I had to lead a collective bargaining process for the first time. I'd never done it. I was super nervous. I didn't know if I was capable. And I was out shopping one weekend right before I went into that. And I saw this quote in a frame. And it stands on my dresser to this day. And when I'm having those days where I feel like I have a challenge that is starting to feel bigger than me, I stop and I read this before I walk out of my room in the morning. And it's a quote by Eleanor Roosevelt. And it says, you gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. And you just do the things you think you cannot do. And I have stopped and read that so many times on the hard days, just to ground myself. And it's about walking through that fear. It's about walking through that uncertainty. And what I've learned over the years about myself and about so many other amazing people I've worked with is that we are capable of doing hard things. So when we're faced with those situations that might feel overwhelming, it's really important to just take a moment to stop and ground yourself in what you know to be true. Yeah. That you are strong, you are resilient, and you can do hard things. We do it every day. So we have to just make sure we're not losing sight of that in those moments where it seems a bit unsurmountable what's in front of us.
And I would say, like, if you have a misstep or anything, like, don't be so hard on yourself. Like, if you got to be tough, like, don't take rejection personally either. Like, use it, let it fuel your growth, right? And so just if you've had a misstep or something, like, again, it's normal to doubt yourself, but you gotta, you gotta brush it off and you gotta keep going.
It's what you do with it, right, Marie? It's like
Exactly.
we're all going to feel it, but what are you going to do with it?
Exactly.
Yeah, I have one little tip I'll share on that, because I can be that person who starts to beat myself up in my own head about a mistake I made during the day. And I started to learn to interrupt that with a little statement to myself that just says, do better tomorrow. Guess what you learned from that today? Wasn't perfect, wasn't maybe how you wanted to show up. Do better tomorrow, because now you know, right? And it just kind of interrupts that thought process where we're beating ourselves up. You have the opportunity to do better tomorrow.
Great.
Yeah, that's another great nugget. Do better tomorrow. Love that. So, all of these things lead around to mentorship. Who has had a mentor? Sort of put up your hand. And those can be formal, they can be informal, they can be at all stages in your career. I know Janis and I, as both sort of retired athletes, I'll call us, we've had many mentors, in our sports career as well as our professional career. So when you think about that, how has mentorship and your mentors really supported you, and what do you do with that now? I know personally I've had great coaches in my life, and I always think about this. I have to give back. What does that mean to me? I need to now, it's my turn. I also need to coach, to mentor. I've had so many great ones, and what have I taken from those really great ones in my life, and how am I using that to share with others? How can I encourage and really get people excited? So let's talk about that for a little bit, ladies. Janis, maybe I'll start with you, and we can talk about whether it's your professional career, your sporting career. How has mentorship really helped you and helped form who you are today?
I've had the great fortune of having some fantastic mentors in my career, but I'm actually going to go back to your comment about sport, because when I think about that experience of being part of I played soccer, and I remember first when I joined the team, and it's probably one of the first places where I got celebrated for being tough. As a girl, we're not often, hooray, you're so tough. That's not what we're told as little girls, right? And but I always felt that, and I get to that soccer field, and I tackle a player, and everyone's cheering for me, and I'm like, yeah, I feel tough. But it was celebrated, and it felt probably the most authentic version of me and I felt that resonance with people that celebrated and enjoyed the things I did. And so that community feeling of building you up and being your authentic self meant that it's a step forward in pulling your shoulders back and having confidence in who you are. And I think finding those people that you resonate with, finding those people in that community, whether it's a professional network like this one, or a sporting team, or a community club, or whatever it is, finding those people who, when you say something or they say something that resonates with you, there's a harmony that happens there. And that harmony of feeling of belonging is that thing that helps you feel truly you. And when you can own who you are, you can give it back better. So that finding that those, when you're speaking with someone and you find yourself nodding your head because what they said is resonating with you, pay attention to that, because there's an authenticity to that I think is important to understanding who you are.
Yeah, and I would like to add to that, because that's a really great point. The authenticity piece. If you can be authentic with somebody, that is absolutely the most fantastic thing that can happen. You can be yourself, you can learn from each other, you're comfortable with that person. So, maybe that's a good piece of advice. If you're looking for a mentor, find someone you can be authentic with, because then you can have those real hard conversations and you can get some great life-changing advice from those. So maybe thinking about that, Marie, back to you. Mentorship in your career, what does that look like, and how has that really helped you?
Yeah, no, mentorship has been really important in my career. I think it's helped shape my leadership by really helping me see, like, what is possible. And I remember, and when I have doubts, I've in the past, I've had mentors like Don Farrell and particularly Kathy Sendel, giving me a good smack and, telling me, like, hey, enough doubting yourself, like, get up, get on with it, right? And but also, like, I mean, Kathy's always been a bit of a formal mentor, but some of the most impactful mentorships have also been informal, and you just building those through like real conversations and building trust and shared experiences and so I've been fortunate there as well, but and today, like, I myself, like, I'm deeply committed to like paying it forward. I mentor women both formally and informally. Sometimes you're just a sounding board during like a tough career decision or transition, and other times it's just, giving a woman the push of encouragement, when they're doubting themselves. I always, one thing I do tell the women that I mentor is also like, don't wait until you have all the answers before you lead as well. When women apply for a job and they've got like nine out of the 10 skills and they don't think that they can fulfill the job, so they don't apply for the job. Men have like maybe 2 out of the the skill, and they're like, oh,
I got this.
This is mine, right? Like, leadership is something you grow into. It's not a checklist, right? And mentorship also, like, it's yes, it's career advice, but it's also like building trust and helping that person reach their full potential, right? And about what I said about lifting others, and we're in a dynamic and changing industry. I mean, everything's happening in the utility space, it seems. So it's a great opportunity to find those mentors and those allies. I know I've certainly benefited from mentorship.
Yeah, thanks, Marie. Heather, what are your thoughts? I'm sure you've got lots of really great thoughts on mentorship, because I'm sure this has probably been a big part of your life too, and whether it's being mentored or mentoring others. Let's hear about your experience.
Yeah, I mean, mentoring has played such a big role in my leadership journey. I would say my most powerful moments in my leadership journey, even getting into leadership, were because of female mentors and leaders who really led by example for me, but also taught me about the importance of resilience. Or I think of some mentors who really taught me about the importance of producing a quality product, or giving me practical guidance about how to be the most effective leaders. But I've also had those leaders, or those mentors, and specifically female mentors in my journey, who believed in me and promoted me into roles I would have never had the confidence to apply for on my own. I can think about my very first leadership role. I would have never put my hand up, right? And it was a female mentor prodding me and saying, no, you're ready for this. You have all the skills. You need to just step into this space. And it would have not even been on my radar. So I really think about mentorship as, like, there's an analogy that comes to mind. It's, how you see parents getting stepping stools for their kids in the bathroom or in the kitchen so they can come alongside you and do the things, right? And I think of the mentors in my life who have been those people that are basically sticking that stepping stool in front of me and closing that gap. It's like this stepping stool called confidence. And they're like, no, here you go. Step up, get in the game. And it's been life altering for me having those people that have done that for me. So it's certainly what I want to continue to do for the women and different leaders in our organization. And maybe that looks like simple things like bringing up someone's name to the forefront when there's an opportunity for a new leadership role, or maybe a project that would give them some real visibility with the senior management team or in a different way in the organization, or just encouraging them on those days where they might be struggling, or celebrating the wins with them. So I think that's what keeps me excited about leadership. It's really that opportunity to do for other people what my mentors in the past have done for me. And, you know, Marie already did a call out to all of you that are female role models in this space, and just letting others know what's in the realm of possible for them. I think we can't underestimate the power of leading by example and having people that they can, you know, other women can look up to in this space and seeing what's possible for them. And I think that's powerful, and we can't underestimate that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I really like this celebrating wins idea, because we don't typically do that enough. We don't toot our own horns. It's very difficult for us. I sort of speak, you know, very broadly here, but I feel like this is very difficult for us. So it's really important to take time to celebrate those wins, whether they're big, whether they're little. It's so important, because those things are, again, that's what gets us to where we are today. That's what brings us our confidence. That's what helps with our brand. You know, if we want to talk about brand, it's like building your brand in your organization or in your career as to who you are, who you authentically are. So all of these things are really like so key and so critical in your progression. So thank you so much for sharing some of those things. I think this brings us to that idea of what was your pivotal moment. So all of us, I think, have had one. Maybe there's a couple. Maybe it was early on in our careers. Maybe it was when we graduated from university. Maybe it's, you know, only been as recent. But I think we all have them. And it was really that aha moment of like, oh, I get it now. This is where I'm going, you know, and you realize this is why I'm here. So maybe thinking about that, Marie, I'll turn it over to you, and let's talk about a pivotal career that you've experienced.
Yeah, I mean, I've had so many pivots in my career. I mean, some intentional, some not. I mean, we've all been through that. You know, and, you know, I would say one was, you know, moving out of Alberta to go to grad school. And but one that I really struggled with was every time I went back to work in politics, especially this last time in 2019. You know, I was super happy in my role, liked what I was doing, liked my team at H&K. My new provincial government was elected in 2019, and I took a leave of absence, you know, to help with the transition. There was just so much to do. And then after the transition, I went back to my role in the private sector, but I just felt such a responsibility towards public service, you know, and I knew it was the worst thing, you know, to do for my career, but just my heart was telling me I just needed to do this. I needed to step up and serve my province. You know, I was born and raised here, came from an immigrant family that was so proud to be here. I just really felt that, you know, I needed to do my part to serve. So I jumped. I took a massive pay cut, a huge step back in my career trajectory, but I genuinely believed I was doing the right thing. Anyway, it worked out, and you know, I learned a lot, and I learned that sometimes it's okay to take a step back, you know, like title isn't everything. Sometimes money isn't everything. And, you know, if you work hard and do the right thing, like things tend to work out, and you just have to believe in yourself. You have to realize and just accept that growth rarely happens in a straight line. You know, there's ups and downs, and sometimes you're going to make lateral moves, maybe a couple of lateral moves before you take the next step up. You know, but you know, sometimes opportunities, you know, like a lot of opportunities, you know, don't look like opportunities at first. They just look like risk, right? And they, you know, they feel uncomfortable. But if something scares you a little, or, you know, makes you uncomfortable, you know, but excites you, it's probably worth exploring. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great reminder. You know, it's a great reminder that sometimes in our careers we take steps sideways, backwards, in a completely opposite direction.
And it's
But
okay. Like everyone thinks
it's
their
okay.
career just needs to just climb, but sometimes you got to take a step back. Sometimes you got to do a lateral in order to climb again.
Absolutely. Janis, over to you. Pivotal moments in your
Yeah.
career, one that you want to share with us.
I have, like Marie, got a couple. But reflecting back on the moments, that the theme that resonates, and I heard it in what Marie was saying as well, is that they were really scary moments. It's you're doubting yourself. Can I really do this? And I think about when I made the move I'd been in project controls in the EPC industry for 10 years, and then took a sidestep and had some babies, and while I was doing that, did my CMA training and came back to what I knew in my comfortable project controls role when I first came to Rising Edge. And it was when Nick Mark, the former president of Rising Edge, came to me and said, "We need a financial controller, and you've got the skills and you know this business. Come do it." And I'd never done this before. And I thought, oh my God, that's a complete sidestep. My career is going in a whole new direction. Can I really do this? All the self-doubt, all the fear, all the things we've talked about. But I was at a place, I believed in the people I worked with. I felt like I could be part of the solution. And so took that leap of faith, like you said, and look where I am now. I continue to evolve and grow in that role and growth with the company. So those scary spots really are the things that you have to push through to bring yourself forward. And you'd be amazed who you can bring with you when you decide to take those scary steps.
Yeah, that's great. And that's a great reminder. It can be scary, and it's okay, to be a little scared about the unknown. But that is what is going to get us to grow. Heather, thoughts on pivotal moments in your career and things that you might want to share with everybody today?
Yeah, I've certainly had some of those moments as well in my career. I think one of those moments I was faced with was back in 2014 when I was approached with making a move into HR. And I'd worked in various parts of the business, but had never been in the HR function. So it wasn't an easy decision for me. I was managing the customer care center at the time, and I'd spend a lot of time with HR business partners, but just enough to know that it was a really challenging part of the business. So when I was considering that, I remembered something I'd heard about a year earlier. I was at a leadership development program, and we were at a training session actually at PG&E. And Geisha Williams, who was a VP there at the time, said something that really resonated with me. And she went on, by the way, to be the first Latino CEO of a Fortune 500 company. So it's safe to say it was probably pretty good advice. And it has served me well at many junctures in my career. And she said, don't be afraid to put your hand up for the hard jobs. If you want to grow and challenge yourself, there's always going to be opportunity to do that. But it means stepping outside of your comfort zone and maybe even beyond your confidence level. And the second thing she said, if you want to take on the hard jobs, you better get comfortable with being uncomfortable, which we've talked about a bit today, right?
Yeah.
Because every new opportunity you take on, every new project, every new task, it brings you that chance to gain new knowledge and new skills. But you do have to do what we were talking about earlier, is walking past that fear, walking through that fear first. But I will say over and over, if you embrace those opportunities and really put your best foot forward, those small things one day all grow into a body of work that make you the right fit for that next opportunity that comes up. But it does mean stretching yourself and getting uncomfortable sometimes. And so when you're faced with those career pivots, and like these other two, Janis and Marie, have been saying, even if it's a parallel move or it may seem like a step back, if it opens you up for new opportunities in the long run because you've gained new skills and capabilities, I really encourage you to look hard at those opportunities, because I mean, I'm living proof that you just never know where the path is going to lead. If I had never taken a step into HR, I certainly would not be in the career I'm in today. And so it can be exciting, but sometimes you do have to walk through that fear and take on those opportunities and get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah, That's so great, and it brings up another, I think, interesting point. And so in your career, if you're not putting your hand up and you're not letting the people know that can help you that you are interested in the next job, whether it's a manager role, a supervisor, director role, they don't know. They don't have a crystal ball that they can say, oh, so and so is actually, would be ready for this, and they're interested. So I think that's sometimes something we forget. You have to make sure your voice is out there. You are talking to those people that can help you on your journey to get to the next level, because otherwise it's just your thoughts and your wishes of where your career wants to go, but no one is helping you make it happen. So I think this is another sort of great nugget of how do we get there? Talk to people, increase your network, get get a mentor, whether it's informal or formal. Reach out in your own personal networks to see who else can help you. I think those are really important things that we all need to remember and consider. And sometimes we forget, and it's nice to have that reminder. Oh yeah, that person actually doesn't know that I'm interested in being the VP of HR. Maybe we should talk about it. So yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much, ladies. So we've talked a little bit about mentorship already, but I think the next piece of that is really looking at role models in our life, and this one always makes me choke up a little bit. I think about the people in my life, whether it was my dad or somebody, a teacher, but those people that really made a difference. They really shaped who you are today. So let's talk about that a little bit, and if it gets emotional or exciting, then that's even better. We want to hear the real story. So maybe we'll go back, excuse me, we'll go back to you, Heather. Who in your life journey has been that real role model and that pillar of strength for you, and that's helped who you are as a leader today?
I come from a line of very strong women, and I have a great grandmother who lived to be 103. My grandmother lived to be 101. I have an 81-year-old mother who can still outwork me every day of the week. And I have 3 very strong, powerful sisters. So I have a lot of good women energy in my life. So I've had in them really amazing role models of resilience and grit and work ethic and courage to face really difficult challenges that life can throw at you. And I'm grateful for that, because I've drawn on that honestly so many times, and especially in this role. I have often reflected on, okay, it feels like a rough day, but what have those women before me gone through, and what have they modeled for me? If I had to narrow it down to kind of one pillar of strength in my life, I would say I have one sister that I'm especially close to, that has had some real health challenges, and the strength and resilience that she models for me every day of her life, and the times that she's lifted me up when I've been struggling with my own challenges, the way that she believes in me, I absolutely could not have gotten to where I am today without her. So that's been a powerful influence on my life. And I hope that all of you have at least one of those people in your life that is the one you lean on, kind of your person, right? But as I reflect overall on kind of people who've impacted my life, I've known a lot of women in the workplace, like I've already said, who've impacted me in various stages of my life. And there's something I sometimes say when I'm mentoring of people is sometimes you have to borrow someone's belief in you until you can believe in yourself, right? Like we don't always, it's that imposter syndrome thing. We don't always have that belief in ourselves every day. So it's important to surround yourself by those people who believe in you, who can lift you up. And so many times I've been lifted by those women in my life who really have come in and spoken truth and wisdom in those moments when I needed it. And I think also really important, I think it was Marie touched on it a while earlier, you really need to kind of have those mirrors in your life, those people who can reflect to you in a kind but honest way, where you have real talents and real strengths, but also where we may have some challenges, where we might be creating some barriers or sabotaging ourselves a bit, and who can speak that to you in a really kind and honest way, because we do need those people in our corner not only that just build you up, but can be really honest with you. So I think at each stage in my career, I can look back and I've had at least one of those people present in my life at every stage, and that's made a significant difference for me.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. That's awesome. Janis.
Interesting to hear you talk about growing up in a surrounded by women. I am literally the opposite. I have 3 brothers. I have 3 sons. My mother had 6 brothers and 1 sister, but her sister moved out when she was in her teens. So I think about my mom is who I go back to there, because she taught me how to survive in that world, I guess you could say. Taught me how to be tough, because that was just what we've always known. We're both quite pragmatic, feet on the ground. Emotions don't tend to cloud our judgment very often, and which I think makes me kind of intimidating to some. So I generally I'm better in a room of men than I am in a room of women, because I don't read them as well. And so I think in some ways that's helped me in this male dominated industry that I've always worked in. But to your point of that person who pushes you outside your comfort zone, I have to think of my husband. He's more than once, it's like, I come back to this, it's a scary moment. Am I really going to do this? And he's like, why aren't you? Of course you can do this. You got this, and so that person in your corner who cheers you on. And so, and I didn't always want to hear what he has to say, like, oh, I don't want that. I don't have time for that right now in my life. He's, of course you do. Make it happen. You can do this, so someone who is your cheerleader as well. Those 2 elements of mentorship, that person who shows the way, but that person who pushes you along as well, I think are 2 very different types of mentors, but they're important, and they both kind of show me how to. I use this term with ladies that I mentor here at work often, is like, own your power. They've both shown me how to own my power, and we have these moments of doubt, and we have these moments where we aren't sure, should I put my hand up? Should I ask for what I want? And I say to those girls, play your card, show your power, own your power. You know you're right. You know what you want. You own it. And just otherwise, no one's going to give it to you. Right? But, those people that are going to coach you along and cheer you along to own that and be firm and put your feet firmly on the ground so you can walk forward and walk through that fear like we've talked about, right?
Yeah, thanks, Janis. And we have a little bit of a theme. Our family members are so crucial and fundamental, and how we have grown up and transformed into the leaders we are today. So thank you for sharing. Marie, over to you.
And yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate to have like so many role models, but on the theme of family, I'll say my parents, coming from an immigrant family, we're just really, really close. And I had a strong mother, but interestingly, it was my father who really, really pushed me in education, in career. He well, just, and loved my ambition and just wanted, me to always do well, succeed. And I have a brother who's a year younger, and yet I was the one that Dad always pushed. I mean, he pushed him in the hockey rink, but he really pushed me when it came to education and career. And my parents taught me, like, work hard, do the right thing, and be authentic, be yourself. And that is really served me well. Authenticity matters, and especially in leadership roles, right? And that is the one thing, the hard work, authenticity that, my dad passed away a couple of years ago. And when I got this executive leadership role, he would have been the first person that I would have called, because I know he would have been so proud. And even to this day, like when something great happens at work, like I want to call him, right? And so I'm very, very fortunate. I think we've all been fortunate. It sounds like we've all had like wonderful role models in our parents.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Marie. Before we kick off the Q&A session, I think we have one really fantastic last question for everybody that's still on the call. And this is around, what advice would you three give to the next generation of women pursuing leadership and energy? So who wants to go?
Good to
I
go
don't mind
first.
jumping.
Oh,
I,
whatever.
I'll jump in.
Great.
You know, I think leadership is something really amazing to aspire to, but I think it's also not for the faint of heart. And I was speaking to a new leader recently, and you know, we were talking about some of the challenges and some of the things she was encountering. And I said, you know, it's so true. If you want to sign up for a continuous journey of self-reflection, having to hold yourself accountable and a constantly evolving into the best version of yourself, then sign up for people leadership, right? Because people are going to challenge you, and some days are so rewarding and some days are challenging. And so I think if you're exploring getting into leadership, it's good to take the time to explore some leaders that you really respect and look up to, about what they find rewarding about it and what they find challenging about it, and make sure it aligns with your aspirations that you hold for yourself and for your career. And second, I think there's something we talked a lot about already today, is just finding those mentors and people in your life that are willing to provide you with that honest feedback about your strengths and where you have opportunities to grow. And again, people that will tell you the truth and hold up a mirror in a way that you can receive, to make sure that we're on the right path. And we're when you're getting sometimes that really hard feedback, you need that person that can reflect back to you, because the feedback's not always kind, and you need that person who can help you sort through that sometimes and understand what is true of that and what do you need to just discard, because not every bit of advice you get is always helpful. And so having those people in your corner who can sometimes help you sort through that is really helpful, because we all have ways we need to grow and evolve. But we need those people who can also celebrate us and see our unique talents, and lift us up in those times that are tough. The learning never stops for any of us, but if we can approach leadership not only with confidence, like we've talked about today, but also with humility and authenticity and self-awareness, then you will absolutely be successful in you know, going through a leadership journey, if that's your foundation.
Yeah, thanks, Heather. I think that is also so helpful, because we are all open to advice, and maybe there's some criticism that comes through, but it's how it's delivered. And it's
Yeah.
also trying to understand what can you really filter through. You know, if you're given 10 pieces of advice for things you need to improve on, what really makes sense? And is it truly accurate? Because you could ask the same question of 5 different people and you will get a different response, which could be, oh no, you're actually great at that. So it's great, that point around having mentors, but having people that you trust and people that can also help you filter through that information to really get you to focus on like what is truly important to me. So thanks for sharing that. Janis, thoughts from you? You know, what advice would you give?
I really resonated with what you just said there, because what I was thinking was to say, you figure out what you value and how you want to be valued. Because at the end of the day, you're going to have to make hard choices in leadership. And sometimes all you can go back to is, like Marie said, you do what you think, do the right thing. But that means you have to understand for yourself what is right. You have to understand what you value. You have to understand what your organization values. You need to understand what you can live with, because we don't always have the best information when we have to make a decision. And you have to forgive yourself sometimes when maybe you didn't have a piece of information and made a decision that wasn't what you might have made had you had that information. But if you come from that place of grounded authenticity, like we've talked about, and just that honest truth about who you want to be, and center your decisions around those values, then I think you can live with yourself and you can continue to grow and challenge yourself and move into those spaces that are a little scary, because you have to come back to that piece. Who am I? What do I want? And don't be afraid to ask for what you want. That's another key piece of advice I would give to people entering into the work world. No one's going to guess what's in your head. You've got to open up your voice and ask for what you want, even if it might not mean that you get that job that you're vying for, because you have to ask yourself, is it what I want? Does it work for me? Does it work for the things I value in my life today? And so if you're asking for something that you really want and they're not prepared to give it, well, that's probably not the right job for you in the long run, right? So you take that time for self-reflection, like you said, Heather, and make sure you understand who you are and what you value, and that will really guide you in success in your career, wherever that takes you.
Yeah, thanks, Janis. Marie, any
And
last
leadership
thoughts?
isn't always about, people reporting to you, like jump, like step up, lead, don't wait for permission, like get involved, be ambitious and own your ambition. Don't apologize for it. Like, our industry is going through major transformation right now. REM, roller, transmission, on and on. Like there's a growing need for leaders who think differently, challenge the status quo, and bring more diverse perspectives to the table. And that includes a lot of the women on this call. The other advice I'd have is, something that we've already covered, talked about, you don't need to know everything to lead. Leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's more times out of, it's about asking the right questions. It's about listening. Surrounding yourself with people who challenge you and compliment you. I myself like to always hire people that are smarter than me. It's about working hard, and it's about like getting SHIT done, right? You have to deliver. And develop your skills, like develop your technical foundations. But one of the things I always say to women as well is develop your business and your financial acumen as well. We talked about mentorship, find mentors, but find advocates too. Mentors will give you guidance. Advocates advocate for you when you're not in the room. Both are important. And as you grow, and as you climb, be that advocate for somebody else. We talked about staying true to your values, again, in an industry that's evolving so fast, there's going to be moments where your integrity is tested, and the best leaders are the ones who lead with consistency and character and purpose. And then I'll just finish up by reiterating, pull other women up as you climb. When you're climbing that corporate ladder, pull other women up with you. And that's how you're going to build, a stronger, like more inclusive team. And that's good for your team, your company, and our industry.
Absolutely. I mean, there's been so many great nuggets of information. I hope everyone's, gained a little bit that they can take away and something that they want to work on next. And we do have a few questions in the chat. So let's start with this one. What advice on leadership and career would you give your 30-year-old self, or even your 20-year-old self? If what you know now, you could have known then, what is it? Heather, any
Don't be
thoughts?
so hard on yourself. I think, I don't know if it's just my personality, maybe being a Virgo, but we tend to get a little bit perfectionistic and expect so much of ourselves. And I don't think, I don't know if I'm generalizing here, but I don't see sometimes my male counterparts beating themselves up as bad as I beat myself up when I make a mistake. So I think that's just one thing for me. I'm still trying to learn, but just cut yourself some slack, do the best you can, and do better tomorrow.
Absolutely. I like to call myself a recovering perfectionist, just putting it out there. Any other thoughts, Marie, Janis?
Yeah, I would say speak up even when it's uncomfortable. I can be assertive now, but I wish I was more assertive as when, you know, in my younger early career days. And then again, I'll reiterate, you know, develop resilience. You know, you gotta toughen up and don't take rejection so personally, right? It's business. Like you cannot, you can't take things personally. Just learn and let it, you know, learn from it and grow from it.
Yeah, I think I would probably want to tell that person, don't be in such a rush. Life's long. There's lots of enjoy the journey as you go, because you're right. You continue to learn. We're on this panel as leaders, and we've all talked about the fact that we learn new things every day, every single day. So the fact that you're still learning when you're 20 or you're 30, guess what? You're still learning when you're 50. It just keeps going. So don't be afraid of that. Just enjoy it, absorb it all, ask the questions, and just continue to consider yourself a growing flower. You'll keep going. Just keep growing.
Yeah, absolutely. I could probably put this out and maybe answer this question as well. So how do you find a mentor when there are no formal mentoring programs in place? And are there any methods that you can touch upon for us? So maybe just a little, commercial break for Women in Power. We are starting a peer mentoring program in the fall. Look forward to that. Check our website. We will be starting that. It's a great opportunity to get involved with a bunch of fantastic people to share your thoughts and do some peer mentoring with. Otherwise, check your own organizations depending on where you work. Lots of times they will have something, whether it's formal or informal. And the other suggestion I have is often if you are part of a professional organization, whether you're a CPA, a project manager, whatever group you might be part of, look to those groups. Often they will have mentoring programs available where you can reach out to people that have been around, whether it's 10 years, 25 years, and they can offer some great support. Any other thoughts from the panelists?
There's so many great organizations that, didn't exist even 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Be it Women in Power, Access Connects, Katie Parent's, or the one that she founded, Young Women in Energy, just amazing. There's a lot of networking organizations like that I'd encourage you to get involved with, and they host like great conferences too.
Yeah, get out there, get involved. That's the thing, is put yourself out and get into those uncomfortable spaces, and even the informal networking that some of the mentors I've come across and the other women that have inspired me were in places that I did not expect to find women. I volunteered quite a lot with Hockey Calgary and the Hockey Association, which is not necessarily a dominated space by women, but you'd be surprised the number of women I've come across in the leadership levels of those organizations. And so it's wonderful to find unexpected mentors and collaborators in those spaces. So just figure out what in your world are you interested in and get involved, because what we talked about with mentors before, the most successful mentors are the ones that you have that resonance with, where you can find truth where you're a mirror. So if you're involved in maybe it's a pet rescue organization, but you find someone else who's got oh my goodness, we have a very similar career path, and you found that connection. That's really the key that a mentor gives you. So don't expect to always find them in a professionally organized mentor program. You can find them in amazing places if you put yourself out there.
Yeah, and we talked about, sometimes those informal, conversations, you lead, or shared experiences just are so helpful and informative in terms of, helping you overcome like career obstacles or figuring out what, where you are and where where you want to go, right?
Yeah, and I'll finish off with saying it doesn't have to be a formal mentoring, like everyone else has been saying. If you find someone in your organization that you connect with, you have, leads with authenticity, and you feel like you can learn something from them, don't be afraid to just ask. And I think you'll find that a lot of women leaders in this space will be willing to have those mentoring partnerships with you if you're brave enough to put your hand up, formal or informal.
Yes, that's a great point. And I think sometimes they'll be flattered in a lot of cases that they've actually been asked to be a mentor. So, it's important to remember that. One last question before we end. Just some thoughts on what characteristics stand out to you when you're looking for future leaders. What are your top 3 things?
I think people that take the initiative, right? When we talked a lot about put yourself out there and don't be afraid to challenge yourself and do the scary things. So when people are taking initiative and coming to you with a solution instead of just a problem, those are the sort of people that you're like, yep, they're going to be able to solve problems in the future. So taking that initiative and coming with ideas for solutions is a great way to show your potential to other people.
Be a strong advocate for yourself too. Remember, when you're in the interview process, if you can't advocate for yourself, how are you going to, advocate for your company, right? So, strong advocacy, communication. Of course, the big one for me is always somebody who's results oriented, focused, because I like, I like to get things done. So that would be my advice. That's what I look for.
I think for me, I really look for number one, authenticity in who they are as a leader. I would say humility. I am a big believer also in advocating for yourself, but how you show up every day with your people and being a leader who operates with humility, I think is really important. And I look for those leaders that really, I think, know and advocate for their people as well, but care about their people. So know your people, care about your people. And if you're doing that, your team is going to be demonstrating results in the organization because you're going to have an engaged, empowered work group that is showing up, right? So I think the results can sometimes take care of themselves if you're taking care of your people.
Yeah, thanks. I'll add one more thing. Don't be afraid to have a laugh at yourself, even. Have some fun. It's really important. It can't always be serious all the time. So,
fun is very important.
That's right. So we are at time. I just want to say thank you so much. This has been really fun today. Thanks to Marie and Janis and Heather. I've really enjoyed myself. I hope the audience feels the same way. Feel free to reach out to Leah at Women+Power or me as another Women+Power member if you have any feedback, comments, and I do believe we will be sending out a survey. So on that note, thank you again. This has been fun. Please join us at our next event, and I will say goodbye, everybody. Have a great rest of your week.